Morning, everybody. This is On here, and I just wanted to bring up this month's video topic, which is going to be about freedom and why freedom is so important and why we really need to be placing freedom as a number one priority in our life. Because so many of us these days, and I know it doesn't matter whether you're working in a regular job or whether you're in the spiritual arenas, more and more people are looking for freedom. And just in this month in the codes, we had a shift in the energies, in our generational energies. And this grouping that is coming in, this starseed grouping, oftentimes referred as the rainbow children, or I've heard of some other names that have come up along the way, but they are very, very focused on having a life. And so this aspect right now of having a life, having freedom, having joy and happiness, and these less tangible things that money cannot buy in our world be important and raise an importance in the world is going to be shifting a lot of how we're living. And in this world where we rush and we rush and we've automated so many things, when we are doing that, we are giving up our freedom. When we're spending all of our time working and not living, we're giving up our freedom. We're giving up what it's like to be free and to live freely. And when we do that, we give up so much more, from choices to love in our hearts, to disconnecting our abundance energy, to sacrificing our health. So a lot of things actually fall under this blanket of freedom, if you'd like to say that. And so I really wanted to address that because it really plays well in our codes this month. And not only for March, but also as we enter into April, this is going to be a big theme, but in different ways. And what's happened for a lot of people is they've had to face some tough challenges the first couple of months, which I talked about in our book, because it had to do with a lot of releasing. And in the Code Journey book, I talk about how those 2 months are and how a lot of our successes and things like that we're achieving are not so much the material world successes right now, but are the bigger inner successes that bring the outer world successes. So that is the pieces like letting go of what isn't serving us, letting go of those things and people and situations that are weighing us down, and making the transitions and the transformations. And this is really, really important right now because the big seeds that we want to be planting are connected to freedom. And when we are planting the seeds of freedom, we're gaining all these other little pieces that aren't really so little. When we think about it, our health and all these other things come along with freedom. Because freedom is like the big tent, if you want to say that, that covers all of the other things in a lot of ways. So this is why it becomes so important that we place it as a big priority when we're making the decisions in our life. Now, in March, our codes show that our freedom is a lot about speaking up for ourselves. A lot of it is about standing up where there have been injustices and saying enough is enough. You know, it's not just about me, but it's about other people and what they need to go through, and laying some good foundations that are going to set the tone for change and to bring people back into this realization that we need to care about people. We need to care about one another. We need to care about the integrity of what's going on instead of just numbers. And instead of just the bottom line, because those bottom lines by the codes are going to be crashing out pretty big. And if you have nothing else besides bottom line numbers, then the businesses will crash. And we're going to see some big crashes coming up in big corporations where they have not paid attention to people. So as we move forward, this freedom piece becomes very important. So it's about speaking up a lot this month. It's about voicing what is right and standing up for what is right. And then we have, as we move into March, another piece that comes into play that deals with our responsibilities, and it deals with wanting to have more fun in life. And I'm sure we can all agree we'd all like to have more fun. I mean, I'm there. I'm totally there. I definitely want to be out having more fun as well. And there were days and times when people like in my generation, we remember that. We remember what it was like to do something other than work to simply survive. And there were times of being able to get out and have fun. And it wasn't because we were rich or anything like that. It was simply because the priorities were different in those days and times. And I think we are in some ways circling back to realizing those true values and priorities. So when we talk about being free by the realm of codes, being free is about living in our soul self. It is about honoring our soul processes. It is honoring what we truly need and what is truly important. So the values, the universal principles and laws. It is about honoring the meditation time. It is about honoring connecting with nature. It is about honoring, connecting, and valuing all of life. So it is the soul aspect. It is realizing that we need to place things other than the material world first, because the material world will respond when we place the bigger values at hand, and that will bring us enough to take care of ourselves. That can be a very hard piece for a lot of people to develop that trust, but it's just like honoring rest. If we try to keep pushing forward when we're not feeling well, we end up getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And then we end up having to take way more time off. If we honor a little bit of rest along the way, and the breaks and the pauses and those sorts of things, we can keep our health maintained to where we don't hit those big detrimental spaces that really do become a financial crisis for us. We think, I can't afford to take a day off, but then really you can't afford not to take that day off sometimes. So learning that balance is important, learning that balance between meeting our responsibilities and then also being able to have that time for ourselves, and realizing that it's a very important part just as much as being someplace earning a living. So the free piece is really about standing in that soul self, the integrity, the principles, and all of those things. Now, when we talk about freedom, freedom ties into responsibility. And this is a challenging piece because I know our world has really moved so much to a credit world. It has moved so strongly to a world that is founded in living in debt. And this is not going to be something that works moving forward. So we really need to look at what is creating a debt in our life, not just a financial debt like credit cards and things like that, because credit cards lock us into prisons in a lot of ways. Yes, they create freedom, they create convenience, but there's a difference when you are living with constant balances on credit cards, for example. And sometimes we have to, sometimes life happens and it comes up, and I get that. But we really want to place those things as a priority to where it is not something that we're living on, that we're using month to month to survive. And we want to place this aspect of freedom, because this piece of freedom comes in a way that happens naturally when we meet our responsibilities. So when we meet our responsibilities in life, whether that is financial responsibilities or relationship commitments or family commitments or whatever other responsibilities that we place on ourselves in life, then we open the door for freedom. We open the door to have more fun in life. But a lot of that doesn't happen until those responsibilities are met. So the key to getting to freedom is really about taking care of the responsibilities. Now, a lot of people have this concept, and I know I did for a long time in my life, that if I'm meeting responsibilities, I can't have any fun. I can't have any pleasure. Well, April is going to be a really cool month because it's going to teach us to get back to the fundamentals of where happiness and pleasure really come from. And that is through connection with people we care about. That is through social connections and meeting new friends. And it is about celebrating things, but it's celebrating and doing things and realizing that it's the connection, not the expenses that we are spending to be with that connection, that make it fun, that give us the happy times. The joy comes from taking a walk in nature as much as it does in spending $200 on dinner. And a lot of times people, for example, they won't think about this because when we're younger, we're thinking about doing this and going that places and you know, all these activity types of things that cost money. And so we misplace and we start to make those big financial expenses equal to fun, or that's what fun means. But when we get down to it, it's not. It's about the connection. So I encourage you to realize that freedom actually doesn't cost anything. It actually doesn't have a price other than asking you to meet your responsibilities, to be there in the obligations, and to not extend yourself into debts, whether that is a financial debt, a debt to other people, a debt because you are holding yourself in a situation that lacks integrity or honesty or caring or heart to it. And these are the debts that we really can't afford in life. These are the debts that keep us from being free because they're not connected to the soul self. They are in a roundabout sort of way. But when we choose those things, we are then creating an abundance of strife and trouble. And I know it can be really daunting to consider making the changes, but it's really important in order to have freedom in our life that we start looking at how we can live more responsibly. How can we choose foods that are in packaging that is biodegradable? How can we make these shifts? And when we start to make these shifts, we realize they're really not that hard to make. They're really not that big of a challenge or that big of an issue to shift to. And the amount of peace and ease and freedom that it gives us in every aspect becomes a huge difference. So encouraging the thing, just shifting the choices a lot can bring a lot of freedom to you. And it can help you move your way over. And this is going to be very, very important actually as we move into 2020 because there are going to be a lot of shifts that are going to require simplifying of life. So if we get started now, then we start creating an abundance of freedom to come up in our life, which means when we create an abundance of freedom, our responsibilities are met and we're able to get out and have a lot more fun and enjoy people and things and life a lot more. Now, one more piece to this is about living freely. And this is a really powerful piece because in living freely, what we are doing is we are creating exchanges. We are creating a sharing of wisdom in our world. And we're living as our wise self. But we're also realizing the importance of calling on those people that have the wisdom, calling on those people and working with them and learning from them and realizing where we need to learn and where we need to grow and where we have the wisdom to teach other people, where we have the wisdom to share and the experiences to share. So to live freely is to share our experiences. And that's going to require that connection piece, which is coming up in April. So we have some really big opportunities to make some really big shifts. And I really encourage you over this next month to think about how you can create more freedom in your life and to think about how important that freedom piece is because it unlocks the key to everything else. And to consider that we increase our power, we increase our enjoyment when we are living freely. And how you can share and how you can interact. And to get back to the stories, to get back to not stepping backward, but moving forward through the ancient wisdoms, through the ancient teachings. And when I say the ancient teachings, these are the ones that run through every religion and belief system. They're not particular to a certain culture or a certain religion. They're the ones that apply to all of us. They're the ones that connect us as one true soul, as one wholeness, instead of all these separate pieces. And when we're living freely, we're honoring our piece of that whole. We're honoring our own soul aspect in a way that nurtures and supports not only ourselves, but all of life on this planet, whether it's other humans or trees or the environment or animals or whatever it is. So we know we find freedom when we find that connection. We know we find freedom when we free ourselves from what is creating debts, whether that is a debt to our health, a debt to our finances, a debt to our connections, a debt to ourself. It's just a powerful piece. Hey, I want to thank you for your time this morning. And I'm sitting here in this beautiful setting, trying to connect with nature from the inside a little bit today because I'll be outside connecting with it probably later tonight, but we're due for about 7 inches. And I think this is going to be one of the last bigger storms that we have here in Maine for the season. I'm already seeing the signs of spring emerge, and I'm very excited, and I'm being very, very conscious of the seeds that I'm planting in my life and what I want to reap for a harvest and an abundance, because it is coming, and I'm looking forward to the doors that are going to open. And I've already seen they're going to be happy ones. I know they're going to be happy ones, and you can make them happy ones too. Take care, everybody, and if you want to get your own copy of The Code Journey, go ahead and do so. You can find it all over the place. It's an amazing book to work with, and it's not just a book, it's a journey. Take care. See you next month.